there was a guy. I know, right? There's always a guy. Always a guy. But we dated for a couple of years, and I was so in love, right? And we were both so broken, both of us, right? We had some really rocky times, but we had some really good times too. And when I met him, he was separated from his wife. I know, messy, right? But he was so hurt by previous relationships and needed a lot emotionally. But also, I wasn't the strongest person emotionally. And so sometimes we had some rocky times, but again, we had some really, really good times. But several times when, we would fight, he'd go back to his wife. And who he was supposed to be separated from. And I kind of just felt like he was going back and forth because, one, he didn't know, or he wasn't sure where he wanted to be, and two, being married so long, she was a safe option, and I can understand that. And I know once you forgive someone, you're supposed to let all of that go and just move forward. And I think after a few times of him doing that, I was able to do that. But the last time it happened, I didn't do so well at that. We kind of went through those phases for a while, and don't get me wrong, he's a super amazing guy. But just as we all do, he had some things he needed to overcome that he was struggling with, and sometimes I think that he just dumped on me, like with a lot of overreactions, whether it be yelling, crying, or what have you. And while sometimes I was able to take a step back and like talk things through with him because I knew the place that it was coming from, honestly, looking back on it, I wasn't the best at supporting him all the time. And I can look back and honestly say that. And honestly, that was the case because I didn't really feel secure in the relationship. So no matter how hard he tried, and to his credit, he tried pretty hard, I was always in the back of my head that whenever he gets mad, he can just go back to his wife, or his ex-wife, hopefully by now. And then you couple that with me just feeling hidden, right? I've been dating this guy for a few years, and he keeps me and his son separate, right? Couldn't meet his son. I couldn't post anything on social media, like certain things we couldn't do together. He kept little small things from me. And no matter how hard I tried, it always just sat in the back of my mind, to the point where I was like, wait, why am I compromising and fighting so hard for a guy who I'm not really sure is 100% with me, right? I tried to balance that with a few things, like, putting some distance between us. I figured that would help. Definitely didn't. But overall, I was like, I really love this guy. I need to make this work. Like, we really couldn't get it together at that point. And to his credit, again, he worked hard. He tried. But I felt like I went through a bunch at that point. And to be completely honest, by the end of it, my attitude reflected that. My attitude was pretty rough by the end of it. And we went our separate ways. And a few weeks went by, and I was like, no, this ain't right. If I really love this guy, I need to reach out. So I reached out. And basically in my mind, I was like, whatever it needs to be done, I'm ready to do that, right? So whether that looks like counseling, I had a little money, right? So I was like, okay, I can pay for those sessions. I can put you on your feet financially. I can help you out with some things. Whatever it's going to take to make this work, I'm in it. And so I reached out. We started communicating again. And, there were all these I love yous and pet names and talking about the future and talking about marriage. And then I said, okay, well, let me be specific, because generally I'm not the person to be that open with certain things, and that vulnerable with certain things. So I was very specific, and very open in telling him how I felt. And he pretty much responded with, oh, I don't want to take things off the table for us, but I met someone a couple of weeks ago. It's okay. What does that mean? Right? Oh no, I'm just telling you I met someone, but I'm not taking things off the table with you and I. What does that mean, right? And so I'm like, first of all, that probably should have been something you told me before the whole I loved yous and talking about marriage, like all that stuff. But also, he wasn't very clear. And so I think my mistake was, instead of letting things play out and seeing where he was going with that, I pretty much gave him an ultimatum, right? What are you saying? You need to be clear. Pick, right? And so he pretty much was just like, well, again, I'm not taking things off the table for you and I, but I want to see where this thing goes with this girl I just met a few weeks ago. But if we don't work out, I'll give you a call. So, and so I reply like, well, who does that? How do you do that? People don't come back from that. Like, you're going to choose somebody else over me twice at this point, because first it was your ex-wife and now this new chick. Who does that? You don't come back from that. And so his exact word was, okay. So I said, okay. And that was the last I heard from him. Eventually picked communication back up. All these wonderful things were said. So I think they were wonderful things. And so for the past 2 years from him, it was like, babe, I know I messed up. I'm working on myself. I'm getting better. Just stick it out with me. I love you, right? And I went with it. And it was rocky at times, but I went with it nonetheless. And here we are, tables turned. And then it was me that had to say, hey, I know I said I'm okay. I know I said I had it all under control, but I don't, right? I think I now know what it takes on my end to get this right. I'm working on myself now and I'm getting better. Just stick it out with me. I love you, right? So I was basically saying all the things that he has said to me over the past years back to him. And he pretty much just said, no, right? And not just any no. It was one of those, I no longer give a fuck about this shit type of no, right? And I'm not going to say I was a perfect person all the time. I'm definitely not. And again, I am no saint. Believe me, I'm nobody's saint, but I don't think that anything I did led me to deserve any of that. Completely crushed. And I kind of felt like I spent a few years saying, or hearing, baby, I'm sorry, let's start over. And I went with it. I felt like he kind of left me hanging there, and I don't think that I did that to him.
Toya, if I felt to those, if we had, when I'm in a situation where I feel like I'm an asshole, I feel like people don't owe me anything. Like, I feel like you don't owe me forgiveness, you don't owe me anything if you don't want to talk to me, if you don't owe me, if I made you feel unhappy. No, what I'm saying, if you felt that way, like, when you did, you don't owe me understanding if I, like, in situation where I'm apologizing, I clearly felt like I did something horrible, and in those situations, I don't think that person, if I'm awful to you, you don't owe me anything. Like, you don't owe me understanding, you don't owe me forgiveness. It doesn't matter what I'm going through, it doesn't matter what I've been through, that doesn't make it right for me to treat you that.
That was a pretty harsh pill to swallow. To be that humble and to be that open and vulnerable to a person, especially when that's not your norm, and for that person to kind of just brush you off like that, it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing. Especially since I feel like for the past couple of years I've been saying, yeah, I'll stick it out with you, right? And then the one time I asked the same in return in all of my vulnerability, I didn't get that same energy.